I'm calling you my sister. But Amanda replied that if she said something like that, all the maids would start gossiping. He laughed and asked if the maids were somehow above the princess. It was strange that the future queen wasn't even allowed to decide how to act. She tried to explain that it would only cause problems for Aaliyah, but he told her that Aaliyah wasn't as weak as she thought. She hesitated for a moment, then finally said that she would consider what he had said and thanked him. Without saying anything, he just left the room. Sometime later, he told everything to Nala. The maid listened but didn't seem too excited about it. Still, she said she would deliver the message. Our boy knew that this was the best way to get the message across since Nala was also close to the second princess. The next morning, Nala came to him saying she had something to tell him about the second princess. He asked what it was, and she said that Aaliyah had sent word that today they would have a special training session. Poor Takafuji already knew that meant trouble was coming. In the middle of a busy street, there he was, following the two princesses around. He wondered why they had to come all the way here just for a lesson. Aaliyah explained that getting accustomed to the streets and atmosphere of the city was an important part of social studies. That was why he would be accompanying her to a shop. He asked what they were going to buy, and she suggested that they should take a look at some accessories. Already inside the store, he wondered why a princess was personally shopping for something like this. She was completely engrossed and then asked him which one he thought looked better. Not caring much, he just said both looked nice. That's when Aaliyah told him to focus the gift wasn't even for her. He was confused, so Nala explained that it was a present for the first princess's birthday. After delivering his message, Aaliyah had replied that tomorrow they would go out together to buy a present for her new friend's sister. He said he understood, but wanted to know why they cared about his opinion. Aaliyah said that since he had entered her room and talked for a long time, maybe he knew more about Amanda's taste than she did. However, she explained that her room only had gifts and nothing she had chosen herself, so anything would do. The second princess asked if that meant gifts were useless, but he explained that a gift's value came from who gave it. That was why he believed that whatever she chose would already be enough. Nala thought the boy was being kind, but he was just giving the fastest answers to get home and sleep as soon as possible. Still, the second princess was happy and immediately went to buy the gift. The maid praised our boy, saying that thanks to him, they had this idea. And seeing Aaliyah smile, she added that it was really nice to see her happy again. Aaliyah turned around, asking what they were talking about, and Nala quickly covered it up. 5 days passed. At the very least, he had been invited to the first princess's birthday party. The place was filled with ridiculously expensive food and high-status guests. Everyone stood around looking like fools, badly drawn as he put it, while our boy observed everything with his demon eye. As usual, he was listening in on conversations with Aaliyah and wondering where the second princess was. Then he spotted her, hiding behind a pillar. She seemed nervous about approaching her younger sister. Considering Amanda was talking with Ryu, it was understandable that getting involved in that conversation would be difficult. He decided to play dumb and give her a hand. So he suddenly appeared beside Aaliyah, making her jump and ask her what he was doing there. Takafuji replied that last time she had kicked him, so she shouldn't feel bad about it. He asked for all that courage from before had gone and then shoved her forward. She stumbled straight into Amanda. The nobles all looked on in confusion while our boy just hoped this wouldn't turn into a disaster. She had already gone this far, now she just had to hand him the gift. Aaliyah took a deep breath and presented the present to Amanda. Amanda hesitated for a second, then opened the box and took a look inside. She then said she wanted to wear it immediately, and Aaliyah helped her put it in her hair. She turned to ask how she looked, and Aaliyah said it suited her very well. Amanda smiled, and the party continued as usual. Then Amanda said she wanted another present. She wanted Aaliyah to start calling her big sister. Aaliyah was caught off guard and suddenly found herself remembering the time together as children. She then said that she would be happy to. Amanda was surprised, and they hugged in an emotional moment. Meanwhile, Takafuji just stood there, thinking that at least this problem had been solved. Strangely, the king and queen also seemed happy about it, which made him think these girls had been dragging this out for no reason. Ryu told our boy that it had really been a great idea to have him handle this, to which our boy replied that he had worked hard to make it happen, so he better get a good reward. Ryu said okay, he would try to find something worthwhile, but looking at the two princesses, he was genuinely happy that it had worked out. Takafuji, on the other hand, just thought that this guy really always acted like a perfect hero. He then said goodbye, stating that he was going to get some fresh air. When he stepped outside, Aaliyah approached him and thanked him. Our boy just told her not to worry, there was no one around to listen to the conversation. Aaliyah smiled, saying that his detection ability really made things easier. Takafuji then asked if she felt better now that she had started expressing her emotions. She got angry, saying that if anyone never showed emotions, it was him. But suddenly, there was a bloodbath on the ballroom floor. Everyone was in shock, and our boy realized that after this, Aaliyah would never be called the doll princess again. A scream echoed through the hall, and both of them turned toward it. Aaliyah was about to run, but he blocked her path and told her to stay put. There was a head flying through the air, and the king and queen were dead. What the hell happened here? A man shouted, ordering the corrupt to stay silent. He declared that the former rulers had been recklessly spending the kingdom's finances without concern for people. The king, who had done nothing to stop the queen, also deserved to die. That was why he, a man named Videre, who possessed royal blood, would now assume the throne. And the person called Atheon would be the new queen. Man, it was the commander who had been training our boy this whole time. Now things were getting complicated. The two of them stood there, shocked, while poor Amanda approached her mother's severed head. She started activating her power, calling them insane. She was already preparing a sphere of light. But girl, this is not a good idea. Obviously, Atheon moved in an instant and sliced her up. She didn't kill her, but damn. I actually felt bad for the girl, but at least she looked cool as soon as that useless piece of trash hit the floor. She writhed in pain, and the brute she had just received rolled across the ground. The heroes were in shock, and Atheon told Ryu not to move. If he attacked in any way, his death wouldn't be peaceful. That's when Videre shouted, saying that they were merely children and pawns of the witches. They had betrayed the witches' will by making the foolish decision to summon heroes. That was a grave sin, one that could only be forgiven through death. Man, while poor Amanda was crying out for her sister, Atheon slashed her down. What the hell, girl? This commander was a real plot twist. Everything flipped. The one I hated, I now liked. The one I liked, I now hated. Aaliyah was about to do something, but the protagonist knew it was stupid. She was about to scream for her sister, but he immediately covered her mouth, telling her that getting caught would be the dumbest move possible. A rebellion was the last thing he had expected. Then Videre ordered the citizens and soldiers to send these fools who stood against the witches to meet them. A noble tried to say something, but man got slashed in the back before he could finish. The bastard even smiled at the sky, declaring that now he had finally purified the entire royal family. Anyone who opposed the witches would deserve death. Takafuji kept whispering for Aaliyah to calm down. Otherwise, she was going to die too. Either she did something reckless and died stupidly right there, or the two of them escaped now. The moment Amanda died, Ryu ran to her body. He shouted that this was insane. No one deserved to die for something so meaningless. But Videre simply said that the heroes were still too young. Every noble who had been there did not deserve the life they had. They didn't understand the true state of their country. Ryu screamed that even so, they didn't have to kill them. But Videre only said that if he had seen the horrors of the city, he would understand. Then he ordered Atheon to capture the heroes. She activated her aura, still beautiful as ever, but more dangerous than ever, and told Ryu that it would be better if he didn't resist. But man, Ryu's not right in the head. He activated his limit break blessing and sent a light slash toward him. But Atheon barely moved. She casually extended her sword and blocked it with ease. She even complimented him, saying that both his power and judgment were bad. Once again, Ryu lunged forward, unleashing a storm of slashes. But the way Atheon calmly handled everything, it was clear the boy had zero chance. His attacks were ripping apart the hall while Ellie held up a barrier, blocking an onslaught of swords. Tamaki said that they needed to get Ryu out of there and escape immediately. The problem was that they were completely surrounded by soldiers. This wouldn't be easy to resolve. Atheon remained calm while Ryu was already exhausted. She commented that since even Tamaki wasn't making a move, this victory would be easy. Ryu barely blocked another strike before she leaned in close and asked, "What are you going to do?" Even if he kept fighting, he couldn't win. It would be better if he surrendered so they could be captured. Then she would end the second princess right now. Aaliyah lay there, collapsed while our boys warned her straight up. "You need to go now. If you stay here, you're going to die." You heard that, right? She hesitated, but he pushed further, asking if she was really going to give up again after all this. Aaliyah realized what he meant. He was talking about her sister, about how she'd abandoned her that time. And that was when she decided she wasn't going to give up, she would survive. So that one day, she could get revenge. She wasn't going to let Atheon decide how she would die. He smiled and said that if that was the case, he would help her escape. But from now on, he wasn't going to call her the second princess. He would just call her Aaliyah. At that exact moment, Ryu's sword was shattered. He realized he didn't stand a chance, and Atheon said, "This is the end." Man, she kicked him right in the gut with the sharp edge of her heel. That one hurt. The poor guy spat out his lunch from 3 days ago. Tamaki immediately saw that this wasn't going to work. He was completely down on the ground, and she realized that the longer they stayed there, the more dangerous things got. She decided she had to save Ryu immediately. But in just 1 second, Atheon obliterated Elway's barrier with a single strike. Both girls were stunned, but the commander just gave the order to capture everyone. Man, the soldiers came in and slammed the two of them onto the ground. They should at least be thankful they didn't get their heads cut off. Then she ordered them all to be taken to prison. And just to rub salt in the wound, Atheon gave Ryu one last look and questioned whether she had wasted too much time trying to train him. As Aaliyah watched the scene unfold, she thought that at the very least, the girl wouldn't be able to escape alone. But girl, she wasn't alone. She had our protagonist. Using his detection ability, he pinpointed the best corridor for him to take, allowing him to slip past without the guards noticing. As they ran, Aaliyah was amazed at how far he could detect people's presence. He then asked if she knew how to use magic. She answered that she only knew the basics. So he pointed to the end of the hallway and said that in 10 seconds, 3 soldiers would appear. She had to take care of them. She hesitated, asking if they couldn't just avoid them, but he explained that wasn't an option. She took a deep breath, nodded at him, and continued counting down. 2 seconds. A sword appeared. 1 second, and she fired a burst of air. 3 spears formed around the soldiers' heads, cutting off their oxygen, and they collapsed unconscious. Takafuji was impressed. No wonder she was his teacher. Aaliyah explained that it was much easier to use magic when you had time to prepare like that. But then she noticed that he looked tired and asked if he was okay. Our boy simply replied that unfortunately, their enemies didn't care whether he was okay or not. Then he kept running, saying they had to take advantage of the weak insecurity. He managed to take out the soldiers, but he was sure he had 0 chance against Agiana. The main goal of this escape was not to be seen by her. That woman was on a completely different level. They found an empty room, and he confirmed that at least no one was there. He searched for an escape route and then asked if she was okay with all this. He asked because, man, there had been a massacre while the maids in the palace. He was horrified that they had gone as far as to kill every single servant. Aaliyah walked to the corner and called out for Nala. Man, poor girl, she didn't deserve to die. She hugged her tightly, and our boy immediately remembered what she had said before, that just seeing the princess smile was enough to make her happy. He fell silent for a second. Then after a moment, Aaliyah gently laid Nala to rest and thanked him for waiting. He said it was perfect because he needed time to recover, but the real question now was, how are they going to escape? The 3 heroes were already behind bars, and Aegean explained that she had placed a seal on the prison that was impossible to break from the inside, so they better stay put. Tamaki told her to take off the handcuffs then. It was so secure. She had a point. But then Ryu explained that there was no way the Heroes Alliance would stay quiet if they were locked up like this. They were definitely going to be used as hostages, and the handcuffs were there so they couldn't take their own lives. Aegean actually praised him, saying that for someone so hot-headed, he was surprisingly level-headed. But Ryu had his aura activated, and man, he was pissed. Even the girls were startled by the killing intent radiating from him. The commander recognized that look. Thinking back to her days on the battlefield, she had seen that expression before. The face of someone furious at their own weakness, just like she had been in the past. She kept staring at Ryu, filled with anger. Then she turned away and said if he was too young. He wouldn't survive for long if he didn't let go of those emotions. If he had stayed calm earlier, he could have at least saved Tamaki or Awa. Now all 3 of them were locked up. With that, she left, while they just sat there looking like fools. Ryu clenched his fists in frustration, seething at the fact that the damn woman still acted like some wise men were even in a situation like this. Walking up the stairs, Aegeana was in disbelief that they still hadn't been found. Takafuji was escaping even better than she had expected. Takafuji pauses to think, but eventually says it's worth a try. He asks if the rest of the royal family knew about this. Of course, she says they did. That escape route for royalty, she's not even sure if it's worth trying. But just says they don't have any other choice, so that's that. Aaliyah looks back and apologizes to the poor girl who had just fallen asleep. Sadly, she was still too weak. All she could do was thank the maid for everything she'd done up to now. Poor thing, really pulled at the heart. Meanwhile, the army keeps moving forward through the castle, searching for the 2 of them. Takafuji wants to make the most of this one chance they've got. The only problem is that Royal Escape Road, it's not hard to figure that Aaliyah would try to run through there. Takafuji's feeling pretty down too. No real options, nothing he can do to get them out of this. Then he tells her to wait because they're walking right into an ambush. Not just a few soldiers. He means there's no way through at all. To make it worse, soldiers are coming from behind too, so going back the way they came is out of the question. Naturally, the poor girl is confused. What are they supposed to do now? Is there no way to get through without being seen? All he says is that it's impossible. Looks like they were already expecting them to head for that secret door, and now the place is locked down tight. Aaliyah knows there's nothing they can do. Takafuji's convinced that if they're caught, they won't just be killed, they'll be tortured. Escaping won't be easy at all. He's thinking maybe there's no way for the 2 of them to get out. Could this be the moment he finally gives up? But she shoots back and she's not giving up. No way is she going to stand still and let herself be killed. She fights until the very end. Suddenly, her expression shifts, and Takafuji, wide-eyed and stunned, looks like a popped balloon. The rascal lit up, realizing her spirit still wasn't broken. It really seemed possible now. He says he used detection and found out there's an enemy army headed their way. She asks if it's a large force, and he says probably. He doesn't know if these people are coming to rescue the royal family or what, but there's a troop coming in from another country. She asks when, and he replies probably by sundown. So in about 15 minutes, they just have to survive until then, and the whole place is going to descend into chaos. The only downside is there's no avoiding a fight, and she just nods that she understands. Takafuji knows this situation is a coin toss, 50-50 at best. Whether they make it out alive or not is going to come down to pure luck. So he says they'll run to the area with fewer soldiers and tells her to watch their backs. That's when the enemy spots them and starts shouting that the princess has been found. Without hesitation, they launch a barrage of arrows. But the girl, out of nowhere, raises a magical barrier. She starts yelling to him that they only need to hold out for 15 minutes. She was going to survive this no matter what. She's completely locked in, holding up that magic barrier. But even so, arrows are slicing past her arm, almost hitting her face. Takafuji tells her to veer right, and wow, she barely makes it. One of the arrows graze her hair. The soldiers yell to keep advancing and surround them. That's when Takafuji notices they're moving faster than expected. He uses his 3D vision and senses a group closing in from the left. He warns her, but she gets another barrier up quick. The enemies hesitate and stop for a second, not for long. That shield only held for about 10 seconds. Takafuji's impressed they haven't been sliced up yet. She's exhausted, poor thing, but they keep moving through the halls. The sun's starting to set, but unfortunately, they hit a dead-end room, twisted, closed off, and hopeless. She's losing faith, and Takafuji, no matter which way he looked, there were soldiers everywhere. No way to escape. Right then, more soldiers arrive, shout out that they found them, and get ready to fire another volley. Aaliyah tells them to hide, and the soldiers debate whether to charge or not. They end up deciding to keep firing instead. The problem is her magic is running out, and at this pace, she won't be able to keep blocking for long. Another barrage comes, and now her shield's shrunk down, smaller and weaker. She's barely holding it together. Explosions are going off in every direction, and the soldiers yell to get ready for the next strike. But she keeps pushing. No one expected her to be this reluctant. She puts up another shield and arrows keep flying. That's when she turns and calls out for Takanori while the soldiers cheer, thinking it's all about to be over. Then they realize, wait a minute, one of them's missing. Olia's starting to wear out. The real problem? She hasn't even noticed. There's no worry. She turns around calling for him, but he doesn't answer. And then it hits her. She just used his bait so he could escape. Looks like that whole story about reinforcements and escaping together was just a lie, just something to keep her fighting. The soldiers are getting ready to fire again while she stands there completely lost about what's going on. But then through the bars, she sees the sun setting and feels something in the air. Someone appears, apologizing for making her wait. From now on, he says, he'll handle things. She's stunned, not understanding what's happening. The soldiers are confused too. There's some dark energy in the air, and they're calling to turn on the lights. What is this? The beast within him is starting to show. He tells Fenrir to take care of them. The fools didn't even notice the shadow behind them, and damn, what just happened? That was brutal. Biting into skulls, ripping through necks. The soldiers are panicking, screaming for help, trying to figure out what's going on. But by then, they've all become dinner. Just those creepy little horror movie hands scurrying off, and the whole hallway soaked in blood and swallowed by darkness. Willia's collapsed on the ground while the soldier tries to make sense of what's happening. They're calling out for the lieutenant while Takafuji stands there with a smirk. The guy's still freaking out, and our boy calmly warns him. No matter how much you scream, no one's coming, and no one's going to hear you. The guy jumps and spins around, asking where Takafuji Linori came from. But our guy just calls out to Fenrir and asks if he's done yet. Right then, Fenrir appears behind the soldier, saying only this one's left. But honestly, they were all too weak. The soldier loses it, slamming back against the wall, begging for help. And Takafuji just says, I saw you kill plenty of people. Seems fair that you die as payment, don't you think? Not a very complicated logic, but it's fair. He's just standing there, cool as ever. The guy stammers, are you Takafuji? And all he gets in response is, who knows? Then the wolf sinks its teeth in, another one down. Man, that hero of ours. She really held on, didn't she? She's lying in a pool of blood now, too. She calls out for him, saying she's using what little magic she has left to try to stop the bleeding. But wow, our guy is ice cold. He says it's a good call, but goodbye. She's lost too much blood. There's no way she's making it out alive. Then she asks if he's had this power the whole time, and he just tells her not to look at it like that. Yes, he has this power, but he can only use it when the moon is out. That whole reinforcement story, obviously fake. He could have survived alone. But he said it, just to give her a little hope. Looking at her now, he remembers those eyes full of vengeance and determination. Even in that state, she still hadn't given up. And if that was the case, maybe he wanted to see what she was capable of. Wait, what? Out of nowhere he asks, are you a virgin? She wants to know how he knows that. Okay, now I'm kind of scared about what he's offering. He tells her there's a way for her to survive, but she'd have to become his servant, his subordinate. By accepting death as a human, she could keep living as something beyond human. The choice was hers. I'm just concerned about the beginning of that offer. As weird as it sounds, she's lying in a pool of blood. She remembers Amanda and the maid and realizes she doesn't have a choice. Even if she had to sell her soul to a demon, she wanted to live. The devilish one says it was a great answer. He grabs her by the neck and says, just like she said, he's much closer to being a demon than a god. Then he bites. Blood starts flowing through her body. He places her down gently and tells the creatures nearby to keep watch. Their job now was to protect this woman until she wakes up. Meanwhile, back with the king, some soldiers arrive reporting that the second princess is surrounded. He says he understands and tells them to proceed with the mission. A great nation was about to rise, and this was no time for hesitation. The king was eager to put an end to the hunger spreading through the country and rescue the abandoned orphans. Sounds a little too noble to be true. I seriously doubt it. But then he says he also feels guilty for having done nothing before, and I don't know what to make of him anymore. He knows it's been a long journey to get there. It was tough finding comrades who shared his ideals, but it was finally time to rebuild the nation. Except no, it wasn't. Takafuji already launched an attack and blood went flying. The soldiers freeze in shock and look who's back. Ajiana, the fierce blonde, is here again. She knew something shady was going on. Yeah, the king's already been sliced up like a cartoon steak. Our guy holds up that basketball-sized thing in his hand and declares that with this, their plan had failed. There was no reason to keep fighting. So now what? More soldiers charge in, yelling that they're going to kill. But right then he summoned his blades, saying he actually prefers this option. Since everyone went this far, they might as well keep killing each other until no one's left standing. Boom! Take that to the chest. Cool. Our guy thanks them, saying that they managed to hold out until the end. That'll make them even happier. Meanwhile, some girls are running through the castle, asking each other if they heard that. Screams, people in agony. It was coming from the room where the king was, so they better hurry. When they arrive, who's there? Our guy, just standing in swag mode, hands in his pockets. He looks up and says he remembers very clearly. These were Igiana's top knights, the Valkyrie squad. One of them calls out to Takafuji, wanting to know if he was the one who did all this. He looks back and asks if he said yes, would she actually fight him seriously? Man, everybody's already floating in rage. One of the girls grits her teeth and charges in. But, whoa, she took a blade. What? Thought he was just gonna dodge. Then her expression changes. Takafuji asks why she's showing her emotions so openly. Was it someone she cared about? Not sure what he did, but it looks like he hit her with an illusion, stabbed her, and finished her off in a mutual strike. The other one's confused, and he's just there, untouchable. The girl calls out for Miranda and Alice, telling them to get ready. This guy was dangerous, and they had to be careful. Takafuji's a bit impressed. She's killed one of their friends, and they're still composed. One of them, holding a weapon, says she'll aim for a vital spot. Takafuji uses analysis. He notices their weapons are magical, completely different from anything he's seen before. But suddenly, his foot's trapped in ice. One of them says she got him, and the other says she'll handle the rest. An arrow almost hits him, another one with a magical tool. The speed at which these girls activated their gear was on a whole other level. It literally shredded part of the boy's face. Like, for real, she was past him in a flash. And she even turned back to say she was going to win now. But the guy's smiling even while getting slashed. Didn't remember him being this tough, but yeah, turns out he is. And that's exactly what they're all ready for. Keeps them moving. How? She starts to realize he's avoiding counterattacks so he doesn't get to himself. But that was the worst decision he could have made. She charges in for another strike, but suddenly, she's caught in threads. Actually, not even her. Her teammates all drop to the floor. At this point, it's starting to look like he's going to wipe them all out. Then he says he likes watching these coordinated attacks, but unfortunately, he's running short on time. So he'll give her the chance for a one-on-one duel. As a warm-up, they'll start by facing the squad's commander. The knight can't believe he plans to fight Ajiana after this. Clearly, the guy's insane. He tells her he knows she's probably the most skilled one among them. Fighting without having to worry about anyone else would let her truly show what she's capable of. So why was she still stuck in a group like this? She grits her teeth and charges at him. He blocks while she screams at him to shut up. He didn't have the right to speak like he knew her. Things are heating up. Takafuji shifts his hand to the side, pulls out a little blade, and deflects another strike. Meanwhile, she remembers when someone told her she had talent. Gianna introducing Maria to everyone, asking the girls to give her a chance. Maria looks so gloomy, all flat-faced like a biscuit. But the girls came in asking questions, introducing themselves, and she started blushing. Back to the present, she tells Takafuji not to insult her comrades. She would never forgive them. He just smiles and says he likes her fighting spirit. He wants her to keep coming. While the lunatics are celebrating, he's shouting for her to come at him with everything she's got. Suddenly he pauses, maybe unsure if she's even paying attention. Turns out, she completely ignores him and rushes over and helps her friends up, saying she's not alone. She's got the Valkyrie squad with her. But then, out of nowhere, she hears a scream behind her, and bam, she takes a bite to the shoulder. She starts calling out for Alice and Miranda, asking what's going on, and Takafuji simply tells her that, unfortunately, her friends are no longer with her. They had already turned into ghouls, and now the real fight could begin. He says he kind of wanted this to last a bit longer, but sadly, it's time to end things. Then he waves goodbye and says the four of them can have fun together now. Man, the guy's brutal. Left Maria there to be eaten by her own friends. Lord knew Takafuji was dark, but damn, he's getting even darker. Now all that's left is the finishing touch to this whole story. Outside, soldiers are being devoured, and Ajiana comes running in a hurry. That guy's standing there with a smirk. She could tell something was off. In the throne room, there's blood everywhere, and she's getting a bad feeling. She glances to the side, and instinct hits hard. She freezes for a second and sees the severed head. She walks over and gently picks up the hand. Unfortunately, when she gets a gut feeling something happened, it usually turns out to be true. Meanwhile, Under the moonlight, someone says, "Isn't the night beautiful?" In his world, there's a saying used for moments like this, making a confession. Aegiana asks if it was Lee Nori, and he replies that the head is a gift. Our guy's about to unleash chaos, no doubt. She's standing there holding the king's head. Then he calls out to Lee Nori, asking if those wings of his don't belong to a demon. Lee just gives a half glance like he couldn't care less. She tells him she knows those wings are the mark of someone who sold their soul for power. It's ridiculous, abandoning all pride just to go that far. He says he doesn't really understand what she means. Everything he did to survive. It's not that deep. She tells him that just trying to survive isn't a good enough reason. What, she wants him to die. She slaps her hand on her chest and says she fights for the nation. In this world, having a strong reason to live was necessary, but it had to be for family, not for personal desires, even if it was revenge that didn't justify it. And if she remembers correctly, she once told him he should never become a demon. Wait, did she just apologize? What? That's harsh. Wow, Takafuji, are you just gonna take that? He puts a hand over his face, clearly not pleased, and opens up about it, saying her brother was truly noble. Even after she betrayed everyone, she still treats him like some student. What a shame. Her plan had failed, and now he tells her it's time to wake up. There's no one left here to fight beside her. He calls out her name and tells her to look around. Wolves are crawling out of the walls, dragging soldiers' bodies. There was no one else left in this place. No more soldiers, no more Valkyrie squad. Everyone who came with her and everyone she was counting on gone. The only one left from her squad was her. Sure, a few people were just neutralized, their lives could still be spared. But of course, that would come at the cost of her sacrificing herself. Still, it's not so easy to understand. He brought all this chaos upon her, but now he's kind of disappointed. Maybe there wouldn't be a good fight after all. He considers using mental interference to force her to fight. Though honestly, she already seemed pretty fired up. He plays it off like he's bored, saying none of this is really exciting anymore. So he's going to be nice about it, since he already killed the king. If she dies too, it's all settled. As for the other soldiers, he'll try to spare as many as he can. But Aegiana draws her sword. He asks her what she thinks she's doing. But she's dead serious and slams her blade into the ground, activating her aura. And with that, she says this is a moment of silence for her comrades, those who were humiliated and killed, and also for the ones who were ready to die following her decision. Looks like she's about to go all in on Takafuji. Was that what he wanted? Well, now he's gonna get it. He stays calm and asks, in other words, if she's really willing to abandon all the knights. But she replies that she dedicated her whole life to training those knights, and now with her own hands, she'll be the one to kill every single one of them that's under his control. Takafuji, caught off guard, says that if she does that, there won't be anyone left to govern the country. The whole place will collapse. She just answers that there are still people, ordinary people, left. Even if all the nobles, soldiers, and the royal family are gone, it's just side details. As long as the people still exist in the nation, it can be rebuilt. And that's exactly why she'll keep fighting him. He suddenly pauses, then smiles. She's confused. Why did he look satisfied? That's when he apologizes for underestimating her. Bluffing now would just be wrong. He's going to respond with full honesty. The corpses on the walls, they were just what was left of soldiers who failed to become vampires. There's no saving them anymore. The truth is, everyone she counted on is already dead. Right now, she's nothing more than food to them. Damn, and now we're getting the full villain backstory. Aegiana calls out Takafuji Lee Nori's name and says he's way beyond redemption. That's when she draws her sword and its glow is blinding. She shouts that he's her enemy. Takafuji feels something strange and starts backing off, and with a single slash, she tears through everything. He's stunned. She was way more dangerous than he thought. She had finally revealed her trump card. She'd drawn the ancestral weapon. He never imagined that all his ghouls could be wiped out in an instant. And that look in her eyes, that was exactly what he wanted. That was what he's been hoping for. He spreads his arms and calls out to the commander, saying he's going to use everything he's got to face her. Right now, they were enemies. Aegiana stands there, staring him down, and her aura keeps surging again and again. You can feel it everywhere. But Takafuji warns her that several of her allies are still standing. He wants to see how long she'll last. And then he spots the Valkyrie squad. Aegiana glances to the side and remembers the girls. In her memory, she lets out a single slash, tearing through everything. Wolves charge, but her sword slices through like butter. She asks what the problem is he just going to stand there and watch? If he's not going to make a move, then she'll go first. Takafuji's clearly shaken. Even his stealthy attacks are and honestly, she seems way stronger than him. Close combat was not a good idea. He remembers a lesson where he once asked, what was Captain Aegiana's greatest strength? She answered that she had always been pretty strong, and when she became commander, the queen blessed her with an ancient weapon, a type of item that becomes far sharper and more precise when infused with magic. So yeah, that's why she's slicing like that. Not that they're her friends anymore, but still, those guys were getting shredded like paper. She was deflecting everything. Takafuji's attacks weren't doing a thing. That dark-enhanced human he trusted so much, she was being obliterated. Watching Aegiana's sword, he couldn't help but admire it. That thing really could cut through anything, and she didn't even need magic. magic circle. Suddenly, she unleashes two massive hammer-like punches from above, and now he's even more confused. She rips through his wing, and then she asks, what's he going to do without any way to escape? He tries to steady himself by sticking a knife into the wall, knowing the last thing he can allow is for her to get close. He throws out a few more attacks, but she's cutting through them like it's nothing. He keeps trying to stay